Hello, my name is Michael Camper, and I am part of the audio team at Epic Games. This is the third in a series of short videos to help you understand how to use the audio features available in the beta release of Unreal Editor for Fortnite, which I'll also be referring to as UEFN. For more detailed information on working with UEFN, I've provided some official documentation links in the description below. In the last video, I introduced you to the audio player device and walked you through the various user options available. In this video, I will show you the various ways in which you can trigger the device to play your audio, as well as show you how to test it in live edit mode. If you select the audio device in the island viewport or in the project outliner, the details window displays the various options and settings for the audio player. If you scroll down to the bottom, you will find the user options functions. These are all the ways you can trigger the device to play back audio, become enabled or disabled, and register which players can hear the audio. The first thing we need to do in our example is to set up a device in the island that is capable of sending an event message. I'm going to select the simplest one, a button device. I'm just going to scroll through my devices folder in my content browser and drag the button device into my viewport. I'll adjust it so that it sits next to my audio player. It doesn't have to be right next to it. The audio player could be anywhere in the island for this to work. If I look in the details window for the button and scroll to the bottom, I see that this device has one event that it broadcasts, on interact. That means that when I approach this button device in my island and the interact prompt appears, when I select that prompt, the button device will broadcast an on interact event. I now need to set up a way for my audio device to receive this event. I click back over to my audio player and scroll down to play under the user options functions. Clicking on the plus button adds a new index to our array. By selecting the drop-down menu, we get a list of all the objects in the project, basically the same list as in our outliner. From here, I can select the button device. If I clear the button from the list, I can also add it by using the eyedropper and selecting it in the viewport. Under the button, I now have another drop-down menu. This will display all of the possible events the selected device can broadcast to the project. For the button, there is only the on interact event, so let's bind the audio player's start function to that. Now I want to test my event setup. The only way you can do this is to launch a session. This basically means that UEFN will send your project up into the Fortnite server cloud, cook it, and make it available for you to connect to the creative live edit mode, and then play your island experience. Right above the viewport is the Launch Session button. Before we press it, let's select the three dots on the right of the button, and we can look to see that the Live Edit checkbox is checked. This will allow the UEFN editor and the Fortnite Creative Mode Live Edit to be in sync with each other. Now we can press the Launch Session button. UEFN will first ask you to save any items that are unsaved before it starts validating and uploading your project to the server cloud and launches Fortnite. The time it takes will vary depending on how much stuff you have in your island project. We now have opened Live Edit mode. When I go into the Fortnite menu and start the game, I can now test my event by interacting with the button. There, it worked. While I'm here, I'm going to show you a few other devices that will work to trigger your audio. I'm going to find the trigger device and add that to my island. The trigger device is useful because you can put it anywhere in the world, make it as big or as small as you need, and have a number of different ways that it can be triggered. In this case, I only want it to be triggered from player collision. Also note that the trigger has its own built-in VFX and sound effects. For our purposes, I'll leave the VFX on and turn off the sound effects. A lot of other devices have their own built-in sound effects, so be aware of that when you add them to your island. Now, I'll go back over to the audio player, and under the play function, I can add another array element, then add the trigger device, and select On Triggered. Now, since Live Edit has been recording all of my changes, I should just be able to start the game and walk over to the trigger and my sound will play. and it works. Note that I can start or end my game via UEFN. Also note that if you do not have Live Edit connected, you will need to use the Push Changes button to send all your local changes up to the server to test them out. Another device I'll demonstrate for you is the mutator zone. A mutator zone is similar to a trigger volume in Unreal Editor. It sends out event broadcasts not just for when a player enters the zone, but also when they exit or when they start and stop emoting inside a zone. This can be useful if you want a looping sound to start playing when a player is inside a space and stop when they leave. If we go back to our audio device and add another array element to our play function, we can select the mutator zone and pick on player entering. We could then go to the stop function, add the mutator zone to that array index, and add on player exiting. The audio player will now start playing audio when I enter the zone and stop playing it when I exit. In order to see if I set this up correctly, I'm going back to the Fortnite sounds folder and selecting a looping file and adding it to my audio player. This would also be a good time to set a fade in and fade out duration so the audio doesn't have a hard start and stop to it. Now I'll hit play and test it out. Another tip when working with audio players: they currently do not automatically start when the game starts. You have to trigger them to start each time. So if you have sounds that need to be playing at the start of a game, such as ambiances, one way to set this up is to use the player's spawn pads as a triggering device. Check out the variety of devices available in the beta version of UEFN and play around with the different ways to trigger your audio player devices. I'll just briefly go over the remaining event functions on the audio player device. The enable and disable functions basically turn the functionality of the audio player on and off. The audio player is enabled by default, but you may have a situation where during gameplay you want a sound or set of sounds to stop getting triggered. You can use a gameplay event to trigger disable on the devices to deactivate their playback functionality. Registering and unregistering players allow you to select what set of players are able to hear sounds from the audio player device. It is essentially enabling and disabling the audio player for specific players when used in conjunction with the Can Be Heard By selection in the user options. That's all I'm going to cover in this video. The next one will show you how to add your own audio files to the project. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy creating your own islands in Unreal Editor for Fortnite.